Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is Friday, the 2nd of February 2024, and these are the stories that we'll be deciphering, understanding during the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with day 119 of the Palestine Israel conflict, with a lot of dangers looming in as far as the escalation of this war beyond Palestine. A lot of countries are at guard, and now whether it be Iran, whether it be Yemen and Syria, whether it be other countries in the neighborhood as well. A lot of speculation is being put forward as to what is going to happen in the next couple of days, now that Joe Biden has said that he is going to retaliate as and when of his choice, at the place of his choice, and as and when he wants. I mean, the US wants, but this is what we want to say. But the fact is that this is creating a lot of tension in the already tense region, where at least 27,131 Palestinians have already lost their lives because of the brutalities of the Israelis. Also 112 Palestinians killed, 148 injured in the last 24 hours alone. The Palestinian Prisoner Society says 25 Palestinians have been detained overnight in the occupied West Bank, wherein the total number of Palestinians detained in the occupied West Bank has now increased to 600,485. Speaking of the West Bank, Joe Biden has also put some sanctions on 4 Israeli settlers in the West Bank, saying that they cannot continue with their modus operandi as far as Palestinians are concerned. But will it have any effect? The Israelis say no. The Prime Minister of Qatar says that good progress has been made towards a new Israel-Palestine hostage deal between the US, Israel and Egypt. Palestine says it is looking towards looking in the details of the deal that it has received. We will know in some time as to what it has decided. This and more will be part of our first segment. Our second segment concerns the Al-Qaeda training camps in Afghanistan. A United Nations Security Council report expresses concern over the continued expansion of terrorist groups, especially Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. 8 more of these training camps have been set up in Afghanistan as per this report. We'll be highlighting different aspects of terrorism in Afghanistan emanating in different other regions, and of course the trickling down of the effects that we are seeing in Pakistan, we have seen, and how Al-Qaeda has been helping TTP as well. And that is why there is a strengthening of terrorist outfits in Afghanistan that leads to uncertainty in the region. Then we'll be talking about the attack on the mosque in Canada. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has condemned this attack against a mosque in the city of Mississauga in Ontario province, which is being probed as a hate crime, and which rights advocates describe as being part of a rise in Islamophobia. Then we'll be talking about North Korea that has fired cruise missiles towards the South Korea. Pyongyang has also carried out ever more weapons tests, including multiple cruise missile launches and underwater nuclear weapons tests, plus firing a solid fuel hypersonic ballistic missile. This is going to be our next topic. And finally, we'll be talking about the guitar. Guitars and amplifiers belonging to Dire Straits star Mark Knopfler have sold for more than 8 million British pounds, or 11,227,003 US dollars. It is a huge collection of guitars, and of course it has a huge memory as well and value as far as the concerts where these guitars were played, and of course you know the number of fans that Dire Straits has. This is going to be our last segment. Let's begin with our first, and that concerns the Israel-Palestine conflict and day 119 of that conflict. We've been joined by Dr. Saira Nawaz Abbasi, expert in international relations, in our studios. Thank you very much, Dr. Saira, to have joined us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Dr. Saira, the US has approved plans for a series of strikes on Iranian targets in Syria and Iraq. This has been confirmed by various sources. These strikes will take place over a number of days. This has been confirmed by officials, and it is the weather conditions that will dictate when and how they are launched. The Middle East is also on edge because of this prospect of strikes. What could happen now in your point of view?
I would like to see this in the context of great power competition in the Middle East. Under the Trump administration and even during the Obama administration, they decided to disengage from the region. And that announcement of disengagement give opportunity to other major powers like Russia, like China. They started, through the Syrian war and through the economic ventures, they started intervening into the region more actively as compared to the United States of America. And now the United States of America delegate its responsibility to its client state, which is Israel. So the responsibility was shifted to the Israel, and for a very long time during the Syrian war, the Russian Federation was more into having good relations and keeping the good relations with Israel. But now because of the changing circumstances in terms of the geopolitics, there is a kind of tug of war which is going on in Ukraine also, and that has an implication on the Middle Eastern region also. So you can say that there is a spillover also, and there is a great power rivalry and geopolitical competition which is back in fashion in the Middle East. So for that matter, the question that you have asked is that I think sometimes the great powers they signal through their verbal statements that they have the power and they have the commitment to the region, but we cannot rule out the possibility that nothing would be happen. So there is a possibility also that there is either a signaling by the United States of America. In the diplomatic language, this is a kind of an intent to show an intent that we are still interested and we have all the power to engage in the region, and of course to counter the allies that are forming by the China and the Russian Federation. But on the other hand, of course, they have all the will and power, and they have the client states also like Saudi Arabia, like Israel, so they can intervene into that also.
All right, Dr. Saira, you talked about tactics. Do you feel the tactics are working? Because we see an Iraq-based pro-Iranian group, Washington, has blamed for deadly attack on the troops in Jordan. Kataib Hezbollah has said it is suspending its military operation. At the same time, there's another Iraq-based group, Nujaba, that has also been targeted in US strikes since the beginning of the Gaza war, which said it will continue attacking US interests. Do you see more of such factions coming up in the coming weeks? And what should be done as far as, this current escalation of the situation is concerned?
So, see, like I mentioned earlier, that there is more of a tug of war between the great powers. So, yes, there would be more factions either in the form of proxies that these great powers would be forming. And then, of course, the fault lines which are in the states and in the region, they will also appear. So yes, there will be the emergence of not only new factors but actors also through the proxies of the regional states, because there is two kind of power competition going on in the region. One is by the great powers, extra regional powers, which are not from the region like Russia, China and US, and then the regional powers, of course, the regional supremacy, the game of regional supremacy. So yes, you are very much rightly pointed out the fact that yes, more proxies, more actors, more factors would be playing their role, and there will be more chaos. If you ask me my prediction about the region, so there will be more chaos, which could be termed as the geopolitical chaos, not only between the regional state but also the extra regional powers also.
We also see what is happening with the Houthis and their actions on the ships that are passing through the Red Sea. Will that also escalate?
Again, the region is so much, active in not in the contemporary times, but since very long time ago, the region is very much can be seen through the prism of the regional tug of war and the great power tug of war. So this all conflict which is going on the surface of it, we can say that it's between regional proxies and regional actors, but actually the extra regional powers, they have taken the opportunity of utilizing those fault lines of either sectarian clashes or economic turmoil or resentment among the people living in certain states. So yes, Houthis would be more active, and the United States is seen as more active, and that would have, I think, repercussions on the regional states and regional politics.
We are already seeing, Dr. Saira, the repercussions. The US on Thursday has imposed sanctions on 4 Israeli settlers. President Joe Biden says violence against Palestinian civilians in the West Bank has reached intolerable levels. Israeli officials dismiss these concerns over settler violence. do you feel that the decision that Joe Biden has taken is important for Palestine, for US, for stability in the region, or is it just a superficial measure?
Yeah, it's more of a superficial, because I think this was announced soon after he visited the Michigan, the state of Michigan, who is where the most of the Arab Americans are residing, and of course for the vote bank in the coming election of the United States, of course for that matter he wanted to take, you know, the side of those people. So for that matter I think he had given this announcement, and he had to face the backlash also from the locals of that state, which are the political actors there. So I think it's more of, you know, just for the sake of announcement, not only to win the hearts and minds of the people, of the Americans who are, you know, pro-Palestinian and against the violence, but also to win a certain level of public opinion inside the Muslim countries and inside the Arab world also. But on the top of it, most interested he would be into, you know, winning the hearts and minds of the people
for elections.
For elections.
All right, so it's more of an electoral ploy. All right, the Israeli forces are shelling the outskirts of a last refuge on the southern edge of the Gaza Strip. This was happening today as we speak as well. More than half of the 2.3 displaced Palestinians are currently homeless and crammed into Rafah, and they fear that they will also be bombed into and fired onto by the Israeli forces. What do you suspect could happen now? What is the ultimate game plan as far as these refugees is concerned? Does Israel want them to, you know, cram up in one space so that they can effectively deal with them militarily, or do they want them to leave and settle in other countries?
You have to see certain things to answer this question. One is the ICJ, International Court of Justice ruling, interim ruling that has come, then the role of the public opinion, the civil society, the international civil society, and then the negotiations or the third party, which is I think Qatar is playing role to settle or to negotiate or arbitrator's role in this all. So I think this ruling of ICJ is very, very important. That would definitely put restraint on the behavior of the Israel, but since they haven't asked them to halt the fighting or to end the fighting or battle and to announce the ceasefire, so the implications are there, but not as much as it could be. So I think, and Israel has announced that they are committed to, you know, to eliminate the Hamas, and until or unless it's not eliminated, they would not end the war. So we can say that it might not escalate to that level, but at the same time depends upon the role of, you know, international actors and international institutions. There is a possibility that this matter could be, because ICJ could not, you know, enforce their decision. They don't have this capacity to enforce. They cannot say any state to, or they don't have mechanisms.
They do take out judgments, and they, you know, base.
But it has a role. Yes, having a body of law is better than having nothing. So yes, it has an implication, because of course you get to have the criticism, which is official criticism by an international institution. So yes, it would put constraint. But if this matter is taken to the United Nations Security Council, then there I think would be the role of, again, these three powers which I have been mentioning again and again, because
one of which has been using its veto power very regularly.
Yeah, so the China and Russia is on one page and US is on other page. So it's their role is, I think, very, very important to put either restraint on the behavior of Israel or to change the behavior of Palestine.
All right, now let's come to the truce. Mediators are waiting for a response from the Palestinian side because the proposal has apparently reached them, and they are studying it to see whether this Qatar and Egypt brokered deal that also includes the United States as well as Israel could lead to some kind of humanitarian truce or some kind of ceasefire. Well, I don't think it's going to be ceasefire, but some kind of a prolonged humanitarian truce. Will do you feel there is ultimately going to be a truce or a ceasefire in the coming days? Are you optimistic for that?
One should be always optimistic about having peace in the region. But I think if you see what is happening currently, I think states are and institutions are more inclined, because if you see the responses of Canada, UK and the European states, and which are mostly the US allies, and very few states are in the favor of the ICJ ruling and favoring the plea of South Africa that it's the genocide. Most of the states not even considered it as a genocide. So I think the role of international community putting pressure through the public opinion would matter a lot, and I don't see there will be complete ceasefire. Israel would be keeping its atrocities towards the Palestinians. However, the role of regional states and the role of international community is very, very important to put halt on the fighting.
Or to exert pressure on Israel one way or the other.
Yes, I mean, in many circumstances, the great powers, this America and all its allies, they have done humanitarian intervention. So why don't in between Israel and Palestine? This is the hypocrisy of their, intentions that is clearly evident. And they speak about the issue of Ukraine and highlighted in international media. But whereas on the other hand, there is no talk about what is happening with the Palestinians. They are also innocent civilians. There is also humanitarian crisis. There is massive killing. Yes,
27,000 plus people.
Hospitals are being attacked. I mean, the people are deprived of food, shelter, and then the problems the female are having there. So nobody is speaking about it.
Women are pregnant. They don't even have the instruments or the necessary, medicine for their proper deliveries. They don't have the medicine to take care of the children once they are born. They don't have the medicine to give to the mothers once they deliver. There are so many complications.
It's very inhumane, and I think this is the time where United States should take the steps of humanitarian intervention and intervene into,
When speaking of humanitarian intervention, just look at what happened with UNRWA. All of a sudden, 3 months down the lane, Israel suspects that some of the people in UNRWA have been on the opposing side, and countries start suspending aid to UNRWA, which is the basic body that has been giving or providing aid to the people in Palestine. Isn't this another ploy also to further aggravate the situation vis-a-vis the Palestinians?
Of course it is. I mean, hospitals are being attacked, children are deprived of their educational facility, and then there is another, I'm forgetting I think there was a school where, the prisoners were killed. So they are doing atrocities, and they are then committing the war crimes also. I mean, you cannot kill the prisoners in your custody like this, the way Israelis are killing. So there is a lot of war crimes they are into.
Just one of the war crimes was also reiterated by a human rights advocate who said that there was a mass grave that was found in which people had been blindfolded and their hands cuffed, and then they were killed. Which is part of war crimes.
Yes, that's what I was referring to actually.
All right. You were speaking of children. UNICEF says in a latest report that more than 17,000 children are unaccompanied in Palestine or have been separated from their families during the conflict. Nearly all the children in the enclave, that is Gaza, need mental health support. They are queuing in long lines for food in Gaza. There's a lack of food, water, medicine and whatnot. How do you see the situation as a humanitarian? I'm sure you are one, as we all are. And how can the world move forward in order to help at least the children? Because it seems as if Israel is hell-bent on completely destroying 1 or 2 generations.
I think states and the civil society, they should, take all the steps to help the civilians, because regardless of what is the state policy of any state, the people of this world and international institutions and human rights, institutions and organizations, they should come forward and help the people who are suffering there. I mean, the displacement, the massive killing, the deprivation in terms of the medical facilities, educational facilities, and many, many more. So I think regardless of getting into what is the state's policy and looking towards that either state will do this, I think we are living in a world, in a globalized world, where is a role of international organizations, multinational corporations, where they can play their role, and they should come forward and help those innocent people who has nothing to do with the war.
But I think it's a deliberate attempt to it shows a lack of humanity in many of the countries that are so-called the champions of human values.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saira Nawaz Abbasi. It was a pleasure having you here in the studios, and it is our first interaction. I hope this will be the first of many. Thank you very much, ma'am, to have joined us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
This was our first story, ladies and gentlemen, concerning, of course, the day 119 of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Let's come to our second story, and that concerns terrorism, and of course the infiltration of that terrorism from the Afghan soil. We are all seeing how things are moving forward as far as the different terrorist outfits that are in Afghanistan and are perpetrating offences within Pakistani territory and are infiltrating from the Afghan soil. Now there is a report by the United Nations Security Council that talks exactly of that. It talks about Al-Qaeda training camps that have been set up in Afghanistan, and there is a huge concern as far as the United Nations Security Council is on the continued expansion of terrorist groups, especially Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda, of course, as per the report, is maintaining an active presence in the country. It has set up training camps, religious schools, and weapons storage facilities in several provinces of Afghanistan. The group has also maintained its relationship with the Afghan interim government of the Afghan Taliban while attempting to keep its connections hidden from others. And the UN Security Council also had earlier expressed concern over the presence and activities of terror groups within Afghanistan. Nearly 10 former Al-Qaeda members have historical and close ties with the Taliban. This has been said in the United Nations report as well. It also expresses a lot of concern about the relationship that has developed or has been there, that has become stronger between the Al-Qaeda and of course the TTP. We have been joined by two guests for this important segment. One is in the studios, the other is online. Our guest in the studios is Brigadier Retired Mohammad Zeeshan. He's a senior analyst. So thank you very much to have joined us.
Thank you.
And online we'll be joined by Ricardo Val. He's the Director of Research with the Khorasan Diary. Oh, you're here, Riccardo. Pleasure to have you for this important segment, and hope to interact a lot with you during the course of these few minutes. Let's begin with you, Brigadier Saab. Pakistan has reiterated its demand for Afghanistan to extradite the banned Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan leaders, while underscoring the need to bring justice to those responsible for terrorism and maintaining regional security. This was said by the Foreign Office spokesperson. I didn't say that. How important do you feel is this statement? And the concern shown by the Pakistan government is that TTP is being given a free hand by the Afghan authorities to attack Pakistan and to sponsor terrorist activities in Pakistan as well. Do you feel there will be a response from the Afghan side?
Thank you, Omar. Very important question, that whether we expect a response from Taliban side or not. On the face of it, as the diplomacy of leadership of Kabul has been in past few years, we don't, I personally am not very optimistic that we will receive a response from them which is appreciating our concern and responding to it positively. There will certainly be certain very harsh statements coming from them, as they have been saying that it's your internal issue and don't blame us for that. But this diplomacy which we have initiated, it's a pressure which is felt by the regime in Kabul, and they may not acknowledge it in the press because they have to show a brave face, a strong stance in front of their own people. However, behind the scenes, there are reports that they are, addressing our concerns. And they always, privately when they meet, they cite reasons that their hands are not that free to take actions, because Afghanistan is a loosely governed system. It is not a very centralized Pakistan style that if the federal government takes the decisions, the provincial governments and all the law enforcing agencies abide by that. In Afghanistan, there are so many provinces. Each province is governed by a certain tribe. And there is a relationship, history of relationship between TTP and Afghan Taliban. And that history is a very big motivating factor for local leadership of various provinces, especially bordering Pakistan, to give them some kind of support. And mind you, this support is not only because of the relationship. Certainly TTP must be paying in some sense, whether in terms of money or in terms of anything else, to the local leaders which are giving them security and safety.
All right. So, in all of this context enters the Al-Qaeda, and there the report that is the 33rd report submitted to the United Nations Security Council Committee by the militant Islamic State group and Al-Qaeda Taliban monitoring team, which shows that besides the patronage of the Taliban administration, the TTP enjoys the backing of the Al-Qaeda and also has links with the East Turkestan Islamic Movement and Banjid Brigade. Ricardo Val, this question comes to you. The United Nations Security Council has expressed concern over the continued expansion of these terrorist groups, especially Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, stated that Al-Qaeda maintains an active presence in Afghanistan. How and why are such groups, in your point of view, active in Afghanistan? Riccardo, you've muted from your side. Could you unmute so that we can hear your conversation? We can see you, but we can't hear you. Okay, we'll get back to Riccardo in a bit. I will ask the same questions to you. This 33rd report that is submitted to the National Security Council by a special monitoring team that shows not only the patronage of Taliban administration, TTP, and the Al-Qaeda, by the Al-Qaeda, but also the links with the different other militant groups as well. Who gives patronage to these groups in Afghanistan? You say that the Afghan Taliban behind closed doors or in private talks say that their hands are bound. They are not as free to take decisions as they can. Then who's taking the decisions, and how can I understand also it's not the same federation as Pakistan is, but then there is somebody who is strengthening the Al-Qaeda, who's strengthening the links of the Al-Qaeda with TTP and other factions. Who is that group or faction?
Very interesting question you have posed, and I haven't gone through the complete report which
it's
has
a long
been
report
released by United Nations Security Council. The answer is very simple. It's a very graphic report. From the summary we have read, it defines that which group is related to which group, and they have named provinces where there are training camps. They have given numbers and which minister of current Afghan regime is related to which Al-Qaeda or is friends with which Al-Qaeda faction. The point is, these things were highlighted by Pakistan when the US exit was taking place from Afghanistan. And the kind of conditions which were put in front of Afghan regime, they were not very fair in terms of giving them, if you remember the peace agreement between United States, Doha peace agreement between United States and the Afghan Talibans, they were, Afghan Talibans were asked to do some certain things, and in return, the West, the coalition led by the United States, were also supposed to do few things. But when Afghan Taliban are also equally to be blamed for that, but the Western countries, especially United States, should have understood that if you do not give space to Afghan Taliban to develop their economy, what is going to happen there? When I said previously that it's a loosely governed mechanism which goes on, it's on the tribal lines, which is the governance mechanism of Afghanistan, it is because that, the central government is not strong enough, it doesn't earn anything in order to provide for its provinces. And when the provinces have to fend for themselves, then every option is open to them. This loose arrangement provides space for all types of terrorist and extremist groups to, have safe havens over there. If they are paying for their stay in a particular valley, so the people of that valley don't care what United Nations think about, because they are feeding their kids, they are running their homes from the same money they are being given by these extremist outfits.
One of their leaders was killed almost 2 years back, if I'm not wrong.
So the point to understand is that if you wish for moon, but you can't jump 6 feet, so how impractical your wish is, how,
What you mean to say, Brigadier Saab, is that there should have been a mechanism put into place when the US exited, so that there could be a smooth transition of power towards to the Afghan Taliban or any interim government that would have taken hold of Afghanistan.
I will give you one small example. In Pakistan, we fought against TTP and such extremist outfits in the erstwhile FATA region, and also in various parts of Swat and Jdir and Chitral. What we did, we constitutionally, as per law, we merged them as newly made districts into the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, plus we developed infrastructure, communication infrastructure, we developed health facilities, educational facilities, we gave them opportunities to earn. There are many markets which have come up. Now you can travel to any part of North and South Waziristan from Islamabad in matter of 5-6 hours. Right. But previously it was not there. You have to create options for the locals. Today TTP is active again, but TTP is hiding and fighting. They do not control a geography in any part of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa.
But this is what they want to do. We will continue our conversation. We have another guest online who is waiting impatiently. Ricardo, thank you very much. I hope we are audible to each other now.
Absolutely. I hope the same from your side.
Wonderful, Ricardo. Wonderful. I'll pose the same
question.
Thank you. So many terror outfits in Afghanistan, Al-Qaeda and TTP getting together, having the patronage of some kind of a patronage, whether it be from the Afghan interim government or any other faction in Afghanistan. And that is what causes extreme concern to the United Nations Security Council, which has been mentioned in the report. How can such groups continue to stay active in Afghanistan despite the fact that there is a lot of pressure from different international bodies and the global north on stopping any such machinations? And of course, Pakistan has time and again reiterated, but of course it is falling onto deaf ears. What is the entire mechanism that is happening in Afghanistan as far as these terror outfits is concerned?
Yes, exactly. So first of all, I would like to say that I agree with Zeeshan Saib when it says that there must be some kind of agreement between the Afghan interim government and the jihadist groups, militant groups that are based within Afghanistan, either their leadership or their ranks and files militants. So first of all, we have to remind ourselves that these are groups that have been fighting alongside the Afghan Taliban for more than 40 years. So there are not only mutual beneficial relationships between the Afghan interim government and these militant groups, but there are also ties, deep family ties, blood ties, and fighting brethren ties between these different organizations. Secondly, there are ideological overlaps between the different militant groups. And these ideological overlaps also take into consideration the pledge of allegiance of the vast majority of these organizations did towards the Afghan Taliban leadership in the past, and thus also towards the Afghan state today, the de facto authority of Afghanistan. So when we look at the recent United Nations Security Council report, you correctly highlighted that the document stress how Al-Qaeda and TTP are more or less directly or indirectly benefiting from them being stabilized in Afghanistan. So this, of course, is true if we look at the beneficial aspects for these groups. We see the TTP increasing attacks inside Pakistan, and we saw last year also the incursion that have been launched towards Chitral. So for sure, we see that these groups are able to perpetrate such terrorist activities with an indirect support of the Afghan Taliban. And on the other side, when we look at the document of the United Nations, we also see that these groups are also in return offering their services to the Afghan Taliban. So for instance, the TTP has been infiltrating the Islamic State for the Afghan Taliban, or killing Afghan Taliban commander or Pakistani Taliban commander who were defecting from their respective organizations in order to join the Islamic State. And when we look at Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda is a global international organization, so it is able to attract funds and to provide with the Afghan Taliban with their with a set of skills that they can, take from all over the world.
Now, Riccardo, you talked about the IS. I'd like to understand what is the state of affairs as far as the IS is concerned in Afghanistan, and what is the risk that it poses as far as the stability for the region is concerned?
So, the Islamic State in Afghanistan, or rather in the Khorasan region, which covers, as we know, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Central Asia, but also Iran and also part of India, according to United Nations Security Council report, it has been severely weakened by the counterterrorism operations of the Afghan Taliban. However, the same document also highlights that the decrease in attacks and activities by the Islamic State in the region might also be the effect of a new strategy, of a changing strategy of the Islamic State. So if we look at the trends in attacks by the Islamic State since the takeover of Afghanistan by the Afghan Taliban on August 15, 2021, we see that the Islamic State, yes, has decreased significantly its operations, both within Afghanistan and in the broader region. But we also can see that the Islamic State has been able to not only resist, but also claiming huge attacks in Afghanistan and outside, notwithstanding the fact that the Islamic State now is positioned in a region where it has enemies from all over the sides. So in Afghanistan, it is subjected to the counterterrorism operation of the Afghan Taliban. In Pakistan, it has been hunted down. If we look at Iran, Iran has been now arresting several people who are connected to the recent attacks in Kerman province. And in Central Asia, also, we see Tajikistan and Uzbekistan governments taking actions against the potential Islamic State recruit. So the most lethal aspect of the Islamic State, which it still retains now for not only Afghanistan but also for Pakistan, is the fact that it is unpredictable. It is able to stay quiet for months and then starting claiming new wave of attacks or one single significant attack, whether it is in Afghanistan or Pakistan, mostly against soft civilian targets. And the problem with the Islamic State is that it, yes, please.
No. Do continue.
I just wanted to add, maybe this is worth exploring another question, that the problem with the Islamic State is that it is an international terrorist organization, so it's not, one country is not able to fight it alone. So Afghanistan cannot tackle it, Pakistan cannot tackle it alone, but it needs a regional cooperation.
All right, that's a very important point that you're noting, and on that I have to bid you goodbye. We're a bit short of time, Riccardo, so thank you very much to have joined us. We'll be inshallah getting hold of you more often in the coming days. Thank you very much to have joined us. Brigadier Saab, coming to you. We need more of a regional interaction, says Riccardo. What kind of regional interaction are or should we be looking at in order to not only deal with this nexus of Al-Qaeda and TTP, but also the nexus of other terrorist organizations such as the ISKP or others that have been, harming Pakistan directly and indirectly?
Omar, irrespective of what happened and why it happened, at the moment we have a very big problem at our hands, and Afghanistan ruled by a regime which is not ready to accept their part of the deal which they signed with the United States, but the guarantees given were for the international community, particularly the countries bordering Afghanistan, which is Central Asia, Pakistan, China and Iran, that from Afghanistan there will be no activity which would put the security of the neighboring countries at risk. There will be no terrorism, there will be no extremism. So that is one point where regional forum is very important, and we have seen that Russians took some initiative before even the US exited Afghanistan, and later also there has been Chinese initiatives, there has been initiative between China, Iran and Pakistan, and at some forums even India was also involved in it, because it is some threat which is for the whole region, and not only South Asia, Central Asia is involved, China is involved, West Asia, which is like Iran, they are also going to feel the heat of what is happening. The report has highlighted training camps and activities in certain provinces. If you see the map, they are primarily south of Kabul, central Afghanistan and tilting eastwards, which is towards Pakistan. So these activities which are bordering in provinces of Afghanistan, which are bordering Pakistan, so frankly, Central Asian states are not much worried about it. Neither Iran is much worried about it. Yes, because of ETTM, which is affecting the Chinese are worried about it. So basically, the responsibility or the concern stops at China and Pakistan. These two countries have to take initiative at regional level, create a pressure on the Kabul regime to take certain steps in order to defeat the growth of this extremism. I am sure that sanity will prevail in Afghanistan and especially amongst the Kabul regime, and this extremist outfits are, the threat they are going to pose is going to affect the Afghanis living in Afghanistan the most.
All right, thank you very much, Brigadier Retired Mohammad Zeeshan, Senior Analyst, to have joined us on this very, very important topic, that is terrorism in Afghanistan emanating and trickling down in countries such as Pakistan. Let's come to our last stories very, very quickly. The first, ladies and gentlemen, concerns Canada, and of course there has been an attack on one of the mosques in Mississauga, that is located in Ontario, and there is a huge condemnation that has come as a result of it, not only from factions that are related to the Muslim community within Canada, but also by the Premier Justin Trudeau himself, who has condemned this attack, and which of course is now being probed as a hate crime, and which rights advocates have described as being part of a rise in Islamophobia. We all remember how Justin Trudeau in the past also has been highlighting this cause whenever anything concerning the Muslims has happened in the past. Then we are going to talk about North Korea that has fired cruise missiles towards the south of Korea. We all know about the tense situation that exists between the two Koreas, and how North Korea has now declared the South Korea as an enemy, more or less. And the fact that so many tests are being conducted as we speak by the North Korean side, the latest being this cruise missiles test that of course the South Korea as well as countries such as Japan and the US are taking cognizance of. Will that create an escalation? Only time will tell. Finally, guitars and amplifiers belonging to a Dire Straits star Mark Knopfler have been sold for more than $8 million at an auction much higher than it had been estimated. Knopfler sold more than 120 of his guitars and amps, which 25 of the proceeds are going to go to a charity. The amount that has been received is a staggering $11,227,000 or £8,840,160. This price, 25% of this total price will be divided equally and donated to charities that Mark Knopfler has supported for many years, the British Red Cross, Tusk and Brave Hearts of the Northeast. Well, with this, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. It's Friday, it's the weekend. We have a long haul in front of us, and the elections are also nearing. We'll be seeing you, inshallah, on Monday with news story segments that pertain to us, you, and Pakistan. Have a wonderful weekend, but stay safe. Allah Hafiz.